All right, we are live. So we'll just take a minute to let everybody get on, and then we'll go from there. Welcome everybody jumping on. We really appreciate you being here today. We're just waiting on one more of our panelists who's having a technical difficulty. So we'll get there in just a second. Isn't it always like this? You practice things and then
it doesn't work. Especially Joe is pretty tech savvy, right?
Yeah, actually, yeah. His wife, you know, oh, they said that they can see and hear all of us, but that's interesting. Are they? Oh, I see. Hold on.
There you go.
All righty. Okay, Jenny and Joe, you can see and hear all of us. Now turn on your camera as well. Go down to the bottom and click video so it starts for you. I'm pretty sure you just muted yourselves. Oh my gosh. Thank you everyone for your patience. We're getting there.
Can you hear us, Chris?
I can hear you. We just can't see you.
Video is on. Yeah, I'm gonna get on my computer. Hold on a second. I'll just get on from my phone real fast so you at least have us.
Sounds good. All right, I'm gonna start. So thank you everyone for joining us today for this Paso Robles Wine Country virtual visit. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. My name is Chris Taranto. I am the Communications Director with the Paso Robles Wine Country Alliance. And Tuin Communications is who helped put this together. So special thanks to Tuin for doing that for us. And we are the trade and marketing organization for the Paso Robles wine region, the AVA, or the American Viticultural Area. And today we are kicking off one of our very first virtual visits with 3 different brands in town that all have a little something in common. Really, it's a little something in common with the entire region. What I want to do real quick, though, is give each of our brands 30 seconds or so to say hello and talk just really quick about who their brand is. And we'll start with Arnaud and Guillaume with Binôme. Guys, go shoot.
Hi guys, this is Guillaume. I'm Arnaud. So we are the owner of Binôme Wines. We started this brand in 2015, so not too long ago. As you can hear, we are French. My brother Guillaume moved in 2003 to Paso. I moved here 10 years later. We are focusing on Cabernet and Cabernet blends. So we are excited to have you taste our 100% Cab.
Great, excellent. Thank you very much. Catherine, who wants to go first or go?
Go ahead, Poppy.
Okay, I'm Daniel Dow. My brother and I came here in 2007 to establish Dow Family Estates. We are an estate focused on Bordeaux varieties. And I have 5 children. 4 of them are either involved in the business or studying to be involved in the business. And my beautiful daughter, Catherine, here, who joined us, handles all the social media and marketing for the winery. She's involved with the marketing as well. So she's joining me today.
Yes, hello. Yeah, I am Daniel's eldest daughter, Catherine. I'm very excited to be here today and welcome to this really cool event. Thank you for hosting it, PRWCA. We are a family-owned business, obviously, and it was very natural for me to get involved in the family business about 4 years ago. Started in the tasting room and grew my way into digital marketing, and now I'm the social media manager and brand ambassador as well, but very much happy to be a part of today. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. And Jenny and Joe Barton, where did you guys? Oh, there you are.
Figured it out.
We're here.
We
with,
were
Bar-
there,
with
and then all of a sudden it went dark. So nice to meet everybody. I'm Jenny. This is Joe. And we have Barton Family Wines, a family-owned and operated winery here in Paso Robles. We're also the 25th winery in the region. Joe and I are a husband and wife team, following in the footsteps of his mom and dad, who also founded the winery, and we're a husband and wife team. And super excited to be here with everybody today, and appreciative that you took the time to listen to us and meet with us. And we're looking forward to sharing some of our recipes and our family history and stories with you, and drink some claret and learn about some other wines from some families in the area as well.
Super excited. Great to be here.
Right on. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. All right, so let's go back over how we're doing this today. We are basically going to go through and have a little conversation basically about family-owned wineries and what it means to all of our wineries and winery representatives, owners, winemakers here today. And kind of make that tie into how that really is what Paso is all about. You know, 95% of all of the wineries in Paso are actually family-owned wineries. So, hey, Jenny and Joe, can you mute yours for now for a second, please? Or don't go away, just mute. They'll come back. And so, that being said, we thought that we would focus on a little bit of that kind of family ties where we have multi-generational siblings or couples that, and how they manage owning and operating wineries in the Paso Robles wine region. You know, I think a lot has been said about Paso and the quality of wines, that we're this up and coming region, that maybe even that we're, you know, this new shining star when it comes to certain varieties and the like. But I think sometimes what's left out of that is this kind of family people connection. And so we're hoping to impart that today. Let's take a few minutes though to talk a little bit about each other in a sense. What we're gonna do is talk a little bit about your approach with family and how maybe that role has played in your family and within the business, and maybe how it kind of has evolved even over time. I'd love for one of you to jump in and talk a little bit about this straight off, but I'm kind of looking at Daniel though, because you did go first a second ago. And when we're talking multi-generational, you already have 4 of your children involved in the business. Talk a little bit about that and how that evolved.
Well, I think I'll start by saying that my brother and I have a very unique relationship, one that you often don't encounter. And it started basically being born in Lebanon, where we were victims of the first terrorist attack. So him and I was 8, he was 12. We almost died together. That really allowed us to have a very, very unique relationship, one that is really based on a lot of trust, and a lot of respect, and really allowing us to always see the forest from the trees. We started this winery together, following our passion. And, you know, my parents taught us always when we were kids, they would always tell us, l'union fait la force in French, which is the union makes the strength. Your union makes you stronger. And that's really the platform that my brother and I have always believed in. That is, together, we're always stronger than one, where synergistically 1 + 1 is more than 2. And that's really how I've raised my children. You know, they work well together. They understand the importance of family. You know, and I'm going to offer one more advice, which may seem kind of strange at first, but just bear with me for a minute. And I've told this to my daughter so many times, is when you're dealing with family, try not to think only with your head, but think with your heart. It's very easy to think with your head and start wanting to be competitive and starting to want to have some rivalry. You know, we all know about sibling rivalry. It exists obviously in every family. But I always tell my children, you know, think with your heart. Always remember that you're the same blood. Always remember that you're the same family. Always remember that together you're stronger than one. And that's how my brother and I have been able to work great together since I was 18 years old. And he was 22, he's 4 years older. So, you know, I'm very excited that my children joined the business. They did it because they're passionate about wine. They're a chip off the old block for sure. When I'm around them, they kind of want me to push me out of the way so they can take over and basically put their opinion. I love that because I want them to be assertive. I've got 4 daughters and 1 son, and it's really a pleasure working with all of them in the business.
That's great. That's really awesome.
Just to piggyback on that, I think what's beautiful about working in a family business with 5 children and my father and my uncle and watching them is that it's truly taught me the beauty that everyone has their own strengths and their own talents, and that doesn't have to be competitive nature, that it can really be bringing your own unique gifts to the table and how you work in harmony with each other. And I think that's what I've seen, at least in my father and my uncle, being such a wonderful winemaker and being so passionate about that. And you look at my uncle and they're kind of this yin and yang, where he's got this natural talent for networking and building relationships. And so the 2 of them together have really been harmonious with each other. And so when it comes to my siblings and I, of course, being the oldest, I feel like I take on a different role. But it's really just about looking at everyone's unique gifts and strengths and seeing where they fit in the realm of, you know, family and also the business too.
Yeah. You know, Joe, you also kind of basically started in a way under and learning from your dad and learning a lot of not only winemaking, but also philosophy and everything. How has that translated now, watching, as Jenny had put it, watching your dad and Shirlene, your mom, work together, translated into current relationship?
You know, I think, you know, just seeing how they were, you know, talking about it as well, is that, you know, the Dows, you know, we all have some of the same, you know, experiences in life. And it's to me, it's such a far reaching goal of life. You know, I mean, it wasn't just, you know, just me and my dad and my mom and what me and Jenny have. I mean, it's the legacy of your family going way back and what it all took to get here. And we all kind of, you know, have been in family businesses our whole life. I mean, Jenny's family was turkey farmers for, you know, for multiple generations. They homesteaded a ranch in California back in the early 1900s. And so there's this thread of family history that we're just the next generation of it, that we're stretching it through. And I think there's a lot of pride that goes into, you know, really carrying that on and holding it on and having a legacy. You know, we have our girls here on the weekends and they're bussing, and, you know, Ella's, you know, our oldest is checking in, checking in, being the hostess, and, you know, she's 15 years old, and you give them a feeling of responsibility to the family legacy and the family heritage. But, you know, you love the fact that sometimes we're all working and it's a lot, you know, it's a lot to carry on these type of operations. I think people they think that this is all luxury. It's work, but it's work you love. And honestly, some of the best times we have is when we're doing work as a family. We're spending time together, and we're accomplishing a goal together as a family, knowing that, you know, as I get older, I hope that the girls are able to come underneath us and take on some of the responsibilities like, you know, Daniel's girls are, and see that, and you want them to take that, and you want them to be proud of that. And this is some of the pride that they have, you know, getting started and being part of winemaking and going further along as time goes by. And we're just, you know, I'm just amazed to see what it's done just for me and my family in the last 25 years, you know, with my family coming as carpenters and tradesmen. And, you know, basically my family was Dust Bowl peeps. You know, we left Texas and Oklahoma looking for work and came to California in the 40s. That was my family. And, you know, they were migrant workers back when migrant workers were Texans and Oklahomans. And so for us to be here now, and for us to see how we've been able to, you know, to bring our family to this point in time, that's part of what makes this whole thing special.
Yeah, that's great. Fabre brothers, you guys, I mean, your history, when we start talking about family history, goes way back into France, even from a winemaking family. Has that trickled down now, not only through you, but into your wives and your relationships and your children, and as you're growing?
Yeah, I mean, you know, like Daniel was saying, you know, it's the relationship with my brother Guillaume has been amazing, and all built about trust and respect. You know, when you start building a project together with brothers, you know, you always think about what happens if he's going to fail. And so we kind of took that apart, because Guillaume is more focused on the farming, on the winemaking. I'm more on the other side, you know, on the sales. And so we have our own kind of, side at the winery. And I see more like a synergy, it's definitely a fusion together where we can really focus on our own thing. And so building into that to now with our kids, Guillaume has 3, number 2 is coming in. So it's going to be really important for us to continue what we have learned from our family, because, Guillaume is a 6th generations of winemakers in my family, and we want to continue this. We have our experience in the Languedoc, we have our experience in Bordeaux, and Paso Robles is definitely where we want to step in and continue what we have started, what our family started back in the days.
And that's just left off there with Paso, because I think for all of you finding Paso, there's really a story behind that as to why you've chosen to establish your family here in Paso. I'm going to toss it back over to Daniel to talk a little bit about that first, and then we're going to get into a little bit more about the food and family aspect, and eventually, of course, wine. Daniel.
Thank you, Chris. My love affair with wine started growing up in France, in the south of France, in Cannes, where my dad would drink wine every day. And he would always give me a little bit of wine to drink with him. So when I immigrated to the United States, penniless and without speaking English, I did attend the University of California, San Diego, where I actually majored in computer engineering, nothing to do with winemaking. So my career started out in high tech with my brother, where we basically started a business to really help my parents make a living because they had lost all their money. And this country has given us a great opportunity to make a living and live here and be successful and, pursue our passion. So about 13 years ago, I packed my bags, and after searching for 8 years, I fell in love with Paso Robles. And I want to say, I fell in love. That's the first thing that really I want to stress. It wasn't because it was I could buy property for less, or because there were more properties available. It was really just a love affair, not just with Paso, but with its people. I mean, today you have 2 wonderful families here, the Barton and the Favre family, and I say that in the most genuine way. They're beautiful people. I've gotten to know them. I know obviously Guillaume very well. I know his wife, his children. And same with the Barton family. I actually got to meet Jenny and their daughter at dinner last week. And we're like a big community. We're like a big family, and that really attracted me to Paso. But there's something else that attracted me to Paso, and if there's anything that I want you to take out of this conversation today, is probably the same reason why the Favre family and the Barton family came to Paso. Besides the community and the beautiful opportunity that this region offers, it is the terroir. This may be one of the most unique terroirs in the world for growing the varieties that we all grow. And I want to touch on that just for a minute or two. When we talk about terroir, we talk mostly about soil and climate. Growing up in France, we all knew that the best vineyards in all of Europe, as a matter of fact, even in Lebanon, most of those vineyards, if not all, are grown on the same kind of soil. The soil that we call in French argilo-calcaire or calcareous clay. They're very important soils because, one, they allow you to dry farm because they trap the water from the rainy season and feed the root zone basically through natural watering, which is very, very unique because no other soils really do that. The second reason is they allow you to make natural wines that are only made with your yeast and some nutrition. There's no need to acidify. There's no need to add all these things. And the third reason is they go beyond food and alcohol. They allow you to have minerality and natural acidity, and you really get to taste the earth. When I first started searching for the perfect terroir that I could grow Cabernet Sauvignon in, I looked everywhere, and I had given up on California because I wanted these soils. Those are the soils I grew up with. These are the soils I really, fell in love with at a very young age. I was shocked to find these soils in California. Paso Robles, as you know, Chris, is probably one of the largest, definitely, deposit of these soils in the state of California. You don't find them in many places. There you go.
Sure. This is a nice example of some of that calcareous type of soil that exists here, rock in essence, or ancient seabed. This one's actually from Guillaume's vineyard over there at Clos Salin. So, sorry.
Correct. So that's what made this place extremely unique. Now let's talk about climate, because I want to shed some light today. If there's anything I want you to get out of this conversation today, is that 99.99% of everything I hear out there talking about climate of Paso Robles is wrong. So maybe we can set the record today straight when it comes to climate. Paso is 614,000 acres. It is larger than Napa and Sonoma put together. So imagine I went up to Napa, stayed in Carneros, and left Carneros, never went anywhere else, and tried to comment on the climate of Napa and Sonoma. That would obviously be very silly because, you know, the microclimates differ so much in Sonoma alone, let alone Napa. So it's the same for Paso. Paso is 6 miles away from the Pacific Ocean, and it's so cold that I know people that have attempted to grow Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, and they had so much shatter, they had to give up the project. Or you could be 35 miles inland, and it is so hot that clearly, you know, there's a lot of heat there. So it really all depends. So it's important to treat each region separately when it comes to Paso, because each region offers something different when it comes to climate. And each region, as a result of that, offers excellence depending on which variety you're growing. Some regions are going to be more known for some varieties, where others are known for other varieties. So let me give you some statistics, which I think will shed a lot of light. Let's take 2019 vintage, what I would consider a cooler vintage in California. Number of days that reached 100 degrees or more at the airport in Paso Robles was 27 days. St. Helena, beautiful region, one of my favorites in Napa, saw 11 days at 100 degrees last year. In Pauillac, which is the birthplace of Cabernet Sauvignon and Bordeaux, saw 4 days at 100 degrees last year. The number of days we saw on our mountain, all of the entire 2019 vintage, or year for that matter, was 0, not a single day. But just if we think that that's an anomaly, let's look at 2020, probably one of the hottest vintages I ever recall being in Paso Robles or California. The number of days at 100 degrees or more this year so far at the airport in Paso is 32 days. In Napa, St. Helena, they've seen 16 days at 100 degrees. And in Pauillac, Bordeaux, 2 days at 100 degrees. They've had a very rainy, actually, and cooler year. On our mountain, the entire year this year, we saw 6 days at 100 degrees, and we're tracking on the average 5 to 7 degrees cooler than St. Helena. So hopefully that helped you explain how unique this climate is, the proximity to the Pacific Ocean, the altitude that we experience in some of those, the Santa Lucia mountain range really helps drive down the temperature and giving us a perfect temperature to achieve ripeness without overcooking the grapes year after year. That's in a nutshell what drove me to Paso, 13 years ago, and it's been a love affair ever since. And today, as you've heard, it's a family affair, as my children are also involved and have the same passion as I do toward this beautiful place.
That's great. Thank you, Daniel. And so just to clarify a little bit on the whole proximity and width and height and everything, I threw a quick AVA map up. And so you can see that the overall entirety of the AVA is somewhere near 614,000 acres. Of course, not all of it is being used. We have 11 different AVAs. We're about 42 miles from east to west and 30 miles from our furthest southernmost point to the northern point. And so we're a pretty big region, and with our western border being about 6 miles from the ocean, and then the eastern border being, of course, much more, with the mountain range in between us and the ocean. So thanks, Daniel. Hey, let's go on to a little bit about some of the recipes that were put forth here. And Jenny, you have some really cool ones. I have the booklet here in front of me, and I'll get these to our winemakers here soon. But Jenny, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the ones that you put in here. We were talking the other day. One of them is your grandmother's recipe. Isn't that right?
It is. Actually, I can show you. I actually have it here too. Let's see if I can turn this around here. I actually did. That's going to be Joe's lunch today when we're done, because we were doing a run through earlier. But as Joe mentioned, my family homesteaded our property in 1919, and started out as a turkey farm and then evolved into duck farming about anywhere from 500,000 to 700,000 ducks at any given time on our property. So pretty big operation. And so that's why I wanted to make something. We ate a lot of duck, we ate a lot of turkey. So I did a roasted duck. And I also, wontons though is the one I focused on. I know it, you know, I was going back and forth what to make and decided that truly is our family recipe that I make all the time.
You can eat about 25 wontons at a sitting. It's fantastic.
Because, so, I mean, you know, going back to, you know, the movie that came out last year, you think about that, it really is true. I'm an Asian American. And what we would do is we would sit around for every family celebration, every family get together, and we would sit in the kitchen and we would fold wonton wrappers for hours and hours. And I have such amazing childhood memories of sitting around the family table doing this and talking to my great grandmother and my grandmother and my mom. And I have now carried that tradition on to my kids, and lucky for Joe and his family.
And all the men, we just do the frying. We just do the dipping and the frying.
So the men do the frying, the women do the folding, and sometimes it's an all-day event. And we talk and we learn about each other and we share memories. And so I kept going back and forth thinking, you know, wontons, is that silly to choose as my recipe, and realize that no, it's deeper than a deep fried wonton. It truly is about time together and family, and we drink wine and we laugh and we talk and we teach the children about the importance of being together and carrying on those traditions. So that is why I chose my wontons.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, I've known Guillaume for a little while now, ever since I think you were an intern at L'Aventure, I believe, many years ago. And then little by little, getting to know you more, getting to know your wife a little bit more, then going and tasting at your place. Every time I did, it was always about Solin's bread.
That becomes wine.
Thanks, Chris.
And I think that's the recipe maybe that we have here would be that bread, isn't it?
Yeah, it should be. It's actually a modification. So Solène give me that kind of excitement on making bread, because it's really hard to find really good bread in Paso Robles. And so she's making some since the beginning, since they moved in 2005, because Guillaume is a big bread eater.
With cheese, you know, and wine. That's why we're here.
And so the only thing I don't like is having a big loaf with a lot of dough, because I'm not a huge fan of the dough. I'm more on the other side. So I kind of trick it and to make it more a baguette style kind of bread. But it's pretty much the same recipe, where Solène, you know, it's definitely a big loaf of bread, and, you know, they use butter and cheese every day after lunch, you know. Very fine.
The bread is always the thing, though, and whenever you go and you go taste with you guys, especially over at Closelin being the other brand that actually was founded by Guillaume, and so he has his brand Closelin, and the brothers have their brand Binam, and so, but we're of course focusing and sent you wines from Binam for this little experience. And speaking of wine, though, looking at the time and making sure that we cover everything, and then we can maybe come back around for some one of the Dow recipes or something like that in a little bit. But I want to get to wine. We have a really great white wine to start us off with, which is the Claret Blanche from Barton Family Wines. And this wine, I feel like lately here in Paso has just had so much attention, locally anyway, given to it. I mean, I had a bottle actually over the weekend myself. It's bright, it's cheery, great, beautiful acidity. You know, I feel like this wine can go by itself, or maybe even with some sort of a spicy Asian type of dish. Joe, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about this wine and tell us, you don't need to get technical, but because they have all the technical things, but talk a little bit about maybe even how you sourced this wine and where it came from in Paso.
Yeah, you know, Claret is, you know, and you know, Daniel was so accurate with all the different terroir, you know, significance of Paso Robles and how much that plays into all of our reasoning for being here and all the reason why the wines that we make here are so unique. Claret was that adventure for me. I call it holiday because it seems like whenever I go on holiday, you know, whether it be to Europe, South America, Australia, whatever, I always seem to find something that intrigues me. And Claret happened to be that wine. I was in Châteauneuf-du-Pape at a wine tasting amongst a bunch of Châteauneuf-du-Pape wine producers, and we kept rolling around. I was curious about white wines, and I always kept finding the main vein in a lot of the wines that they would talk about on their whites was made with a fair amount of Claret Blanche. And so when I had the opportunity to partner with the Ducey family to plant some of this on a very westerly, almost northwesterly slope, you know, in the Willow Creek appellation, just off of Kyler Canyon Road, it was just advantageous. You know, it was like this couldn't have been a more perfect scenario, being that I had just left there. And, you know, I think that's the adventure of Paso. I think that's what drew all of us here, was the fact that we could have a chance to really brand ourselves the way we wanted it to be. And there's new frontiers here. There's new ways to really map out how we want Paso Robles to be for us. And that's where, you know, you see such an interesting set of families here right now, because we all come from so many different, you know, backgrounds, but we all kind of have that same maverick mentality of like, we want to find something that maybe it's truthfully original. You know what I mean? We want to find something that we feel like we can put our stamp on. And I think that's what makes Paso what it is.
I love you bringing that up, because I'm really curious, the way your brand started and the way your dad started your brand, your mom and dad, it was Grey Wolf, and then
originally, yes, still is.
And then it has kind of morphed into the Barton family. Have you kind of continued, in a sense, your dad's legacy? Have you kind of tried to stretch maybe even where you thought he may have wanted to go with the brand in a way? You know, because you've also extended beyond the varieties that he first started to work with.
You know, it's been interesting for everybody to talk about family and going, you know, multi-generational. You know, my dad and I used to, you know, take drives out to Justin Winery. He actually did some construction for the Baldwins when they were first getting started out at his place. And we drive through, I mean, I can remember now, we'd always, this time of year especially, you drive around and see tarantulas running all over the place, and you're like, what the hell is this place? You know, and it is there, and, you know, and you're like, oh, here, you know, the locals say, hey, you know, and this was 30 years ago, the locals like, hey, when the tarantulas start moving, it's going to rain, you know, and when the trees start, you know, dropping acorns, depending on how many they're going to be, we're going to have a wet year. And I had such a moment in time with my dad to see it as, we didn't have a vision per se, is that we just knew there was an opportunity here. And I was young, we were driving in an old pickup eating Cheetos, you know, I mean, we didn't really know how fortunate we were. And I don't think my dad truthfully did. And unfortunately, when he passed, I was given the opportunity to carry this all the way through. And I think as I have learned, and what we started with Grey Wolf, as Barton came in, I think it was my opportunity to finish a lot of what he thought it was going to be. And I don't think he obviously didn't get to finish that dream. But I think what was important about it was that we walked in here with an open canvas. You know, he wanted to be a Cabernet producer, and I love making Cab, but as my palate evolved and how I learned more and more about the things that really were important and really gravitated and caught my eye, you know, things like Claret, things like white wine. I love drinking white wine. And Paso, at the beginning, 30 years ago, there was lots of Chardonnay and Chenin Blanc, and they do very well here, but I don't think that's the very best of what Paso can do. And that's why, you know, things like Claret, Pic Pol, Grenache Blanc, Marsan Roussan, Viognier. I mean, I think some of those do fantastic, and there's so many more out there that we haven't even discovered yet that would excel in Paso. And this is and it's so interesting to do this with the Ducey family, because they are some of the traditional Zinfandel producers of this region, that for them to go out on a wing too, and for them to take a chance on something that they don't know anything about either, that really tells you how much this is what Paso is this maverick mentality, this idea that we're going to reframe our story, even if we have to change it midway through. And I think that's kind of how my dad was. He was a developer in his first part of his life. And he had a vision, and he saw things that were much further along than I think even the people currently were looking at. And I think, the people, the families that the Dows and the Fabros that are here, same thing. They saw it. They saw opportunity, and they saw dreams, and they're chasing it. And that's what just, makes it so great. And that's why a wine like the Claret happened here in Paso Robles.
Yeah, right on. And he doesn't just make, great white wines, but there's red wine in his repertoire as well. This is called Hot Blooded, and it's a
Counois, baby.
Counois. And this is what I'm sipping on right now. Hopefully all of you are enjoying the wines that are being presented today as well. But this is what I ended up having last second.
That particular wine was a planting on the Glen Vineyard that was done almost 30 years ago. And so, that was ahead of its time, and that had a lot to do with the Perrins and Tablas Creek and the Haas's and their vision of coming to Paso and bringing the Rhone adventure to Paso. That, the Haas's and like Stefan, the Aseos, I mean, those are some early come-ins were like, where are these people coming from? We're all, as me who was here, just didn't understand the wine business as much as they did. They're showing up, and they're planting all these varietals, and they're making these opulent wines, saying Paso Robles is going to be the next great thing. And 30 years ago, all of us are like, oh, okay, that sounds like a good idea. I think I'm thinking it. And then now to watch it happen over the last 30 years, and to see that was real, and to see that those families came over here early on too, is part of the same conversation.
That's a perfect segue, because we're going to go over to the Fabre brothers. And as I mentioned, I had met Guillaume many years ago when he was over at L'Aventure. And let's get into talking about the wine that you brought, but let's also get a little bit of your backstory as to what brought you over. Because Guillaume, I think you came ahead of Arnaud, and then Arnaud after that is how I was hearing it.
He's older too.
I'm sorry?
I'm about 10 years younger than him, as you can see. So no, I mean, I love hearing what you said, guys, because, I do feel very fortunate in a way that, we started from scratch our project, Closer in first, Binôme after. But I feel very, I have a lot of respect for, the Haas family, Stefan's, everybody kind of set Paso aside already. We started about 10 years ago, Closer on 12, Binôme was only 5. Even if we start, the work is already worked. I mean, the ground is already worked, so we feel lucky to be starting already at a certain point that when Daniel started or Stefan started, it was way harder. So thank you, all of you guys, for that. It's pretty cool, because now we just put our passions. I mean, working with family is not easy. Our family all worked together, and they all scratched themselves. And like you said, Daniel, we should think with our heart more than our head. Definitely, that's a good point. But when we started Binôme, I think it was just like, of course, we thought about a minute to say, of course we should do it, and we did. So I think what we bring to the table today, I think brought the origin, which is 100% Cabernet. And, when we talk about Paso Robles, and when I came first time, it was in 2004. First of all, on the phone with Stefan, before he took me, I thought he was in Mexico. I didn't know about Paso at all. And then I started to Google it. So, oh my gosh, that's California. Yeah, let's go. I mean, Mexico will go too. But, I really fell in love about how Stefan approached his business, the way he was working. And then when I flew to San Francisco, first time in my life, leaving my family, I was looking for Stefan. I saw his big guy with, long hairs, dirty, like smelling like dirt. So, oh my gosh, I'm going to love this experience, So it was actually pretty cool. And when I moved to Paso, and he was driving with big truck, 250, huge truck, which I never seen in my life. I arrived to Paso Robles by night, and I started to see the terroir. I grew up in a business, I started to make wine. I was maybe like, I don't count the years now, but those things I felt and learned because my family gave it to me, and of course I developed it. And you have some feeling and gut feeling. The next morning I woke up, I hear the turkeys, the deers all over the place. I couldn't sleep because I was sleeping on my doors. And then I woke up and I took Stefan's truck and I said, can we do a tour on the vineyard? Right away, it was a Sunday morning. And I was blown away. I said, wow. I called Solène, she was in Spain, and said, honey, I may go back to France. Maybe why don't you come here a little bit? So she came a year after, you know. So, and you know, the story started there and able to make some wine. And then, you know, but today we feel very, very happy to be here. Yeah. And we have a huge potential, huge. I mean, I think we just barely, you know, scratch, you know, I mean, I think Daniel makes an awesome job. And really what's great about in selling a Paso, you know, all over across the world and US, which a small brand cannot do, you know. So we do our best, but you know, somebody like Daniel or others really can put Paso even, and that's great because people start to come, more tourists comes, and it's huge, you know. So
and then how did that call go between you and your brother to say you Paso, and then talk about the wine that we're drinking?
Yeah, I mean they call us the French ancestral mafia with the L'Aventure, close to Glen binôme, because Guillaume, you know, started with Stéphane in 2005, and in 2008, at his wedding back in France, he invited Stéphane and Beatrice, and I met Chloe, the daughter. And so I came here in 2009, not for her yet, but more to learn English. And then, you know, what happened, we started dating and stuff, and I stayed here for about 2 years. And then in 2011, she came back with me to Bordeaux to finish my wine business studies. And then we moved full-time in 2013 and got married a year or two later. And so this is, you know, something that it's awesome because, you know, you are working with 3 different brands. They are all family oriented. And it really brings that up to us because, you know, we can continue what we wanted to do with my brother, with Binôme and obviously L'Aventure and Solène. So because of that, it's definitely awesome to be settled here. And I think that's diversity, you know, varietal in Paso Robles really pushes to be super creative. You know, you go to Bordeaux and Burgundy, Rhone, there's tradition that you need to continue. Here, it's kind of the Wild Wild West. You know, you can do whatever you want. And so that's what Binôme is all about. We want to take what we've learned from our family, the traditional winemaking, the traditional French style, and really bring over those new world blends into the market because Paso, it's all about diversity. That's what we love. And tweak it, you know. I think the terroir from Paso, like you all said, you know, it's such amazing that you need to be like here for quite a bit some time to understand, you know, those all those terroirs, the weathers, like we talked about. But I think this wine is really a reminiscence of, you know, awesome Cabernet. You know, we source it from a Parish vineyard and some Hoxhill, which is kind of Adelaida's Road, you know, where Daniel is. And I think those soils are very amazing because due to the limestone and the clay, mostly of the clay, you know, those Cabernet are really in love, you know. Doesn't matter what the temperature is, they always do great because of those soils, you know. So, Daniel, you agree?
I totally agree, Guillaume. Now you can see why everybody loves the Fabre brothers, right? They're so wonderful.
On the camera.
They are. Thank you, guys.
Origine, which is the name of that wine, was the first one we wanted to make with Guillaume because, you know, we spent quite a bit of some time in Bordeaux, but as well, we wanted to show like the Daou family is doing on the west side of Paso Robles, show Cabernet Sauvignon that is really doable to do a Cabernet that is world-class wine. And so most of the winery on the west side are a little bit more focused Rhone-oriented, and Cabernet, you know, there's not that many. And so showing Cabernet and Cabernet blends was really important for us as well.
Oh, that's great. It's a fabulous wines that you guys make, and so thank you so much for being a part of this one. I'm going to bring it over back to Dow, but I'm going to start with Catherine on this. Catherine, I don't think you necessarily grew up thinking that you were going to be actually involved in the winery and that business. You had a different path at first. I want to hear a little bit about that and what brought you then back over into the family biz.
Yes, thank you. So I grew up watching my father and my uncle and my grandfather with a very entrepreneurial spirit. It was encouraged in the family growing up to not only drink wine in very small amounts and smell the wine and taste the wine and have a family experience at the dinner table, but also to pursue your passion. And because my father and my uncle were so entrepreneurial, I also aspired to do that for myself. And when I was about 16 years old, I got into the fashion industry through just different jobs and projects and opportunities, and ended up going to FITM, which is a fashion school, Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandise in San Francisco, and studied merchandise marketing, and had a career in the fashion industry, including owning my own business until I was about 26 years old. And the fashion industry was wonderful, and it taught me a lot about the kind of woman that I want to be. But ultimately, at the end of the day, my heart was pulled towards the mountain. I knew that I would always eventually get into the family business, but it was very encouraged by my father and my uncle and my grandfather when he was alive to pursue whatever was on my heart at that moment. And they were super supportive of it. And I'm very grateful for that opportunity. But being in the wine industry has completely changed my world. I mean, it became it went from being very familial to being a way of life in a very different way, in a more professional way. And I mean, I had always known that I wanted to get into marketing. That was my major. I did that with my fashion business, Dow Denim. And so being in a role like social media, working in the digital space, I feel like it's embracing all the best parts of myself while also being able to give back to my family. So I love it.
That's great. That's awesome. You have such a great presence about you every time we bring media and guests like that there, and the fact that the family has entrusted so much into you as being a brand ambassador has been great. It's been great to see. So
Thank you.
awesome. You know, the wine that Dow is presenting is, the name alone is truly all about family. It has a really cool story. Daniel, I don't know if you want to go ahead and take that and talk a little bit about Soul of a Lion and where that name came from.
Yes, so Soul of a Lion is the reason why I came to Paso and become a winemaker 13 years ago. First, the name. You know, we grew up with, we talk about family, we grew up with incredible parents. They taught us to love, to never judge, to be accepting. You know, I think Catherine can probably continue the story. I mean, we grew up with such a great role model in both my dad and my mom. And when we were young, we would always wait for our dad to come from work. And he would take his time for an hour to telling us stories that inspired us to be the kind of people we are today. One thing about my parents, they never talked at us. They always talked with us. And there's a big difference with the way you raise children, talking with them as opposed to at them. And that's kind of how I raised my children, as you can see with Catherine. So, but 20 years ago, my parents were getting older, and I hired this lady that I knew to spend a year with our dad and capture all these stories that we grew up listening to. And she put all these stories in a book, and at the end of the book, she asked my dad, what do you want the book to be called? And with no hesitation, our dad said, Soul of a Lion. And she said, why Soul of a Lion? He said, because our family has seen a lot of adversities. And if there's one thing I taught my children is anytime you encounter adversity, you come back roaring with the soul of a lion. You never give up. So we called our best name, our best wine on the mountain, our flagship wine, Soul of a Lion. The best way I can describe this wine, obviously tasting it would be the best way to describe it, but you know, my favorite say, it goes like this. If you use your hands, you're a laborer. If you use your hands and you use your head, you're a craftsman. But if you use your hand, your head, and your heart, you're an artist. And to me, that is the best artistic expression I can describe to you, and the efforts that we put in, and then the heart that we put into making this wine. The barrel alone takes 5 years to make. We created this barrel just for this wine, which is made in France, outside of Bordeaux. You know, it's a special barrel that I created to really give homage to, you know, the phenolics and the tannins extraction that you get on our mountain, which are really, really high. So it balances them out. Our yeast took 3 years to identify. It's a native yeast that comes from our mountain. And today it's being sold in 35 countries. That's how unique it is. It's always a blend of Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, and Petit Verdot, but it is a Cabernet Sauvignon. It's always more than 75% Cabernet. So it is a Cabernet Sauvignon. Anything from the bottle that we created is very unique. It's a custom mold we made in Italy. To the cork, every cork is checked to make sure that you can never have a cork bottle of wine. It's even insured. So we pulled all stops to really show that what we felt could be the wine that really revolutionized Paso and takes it to the next level. And today, I think a lot of people would agree, as Guillaume just said, that this bottle of wine really helped change the course of Paso about 10 years ago. And it's continuing to do so today. This wine today is in 35 different countries. If you walk into Harrods or Hedonism in the UK, it's one of their best sellers. So it really is making a mark for Paso, more importantly, throughout the world, and making people realize throughout the world that Paso is a region that can rival the best regions in the world when it comes to Cabernet Sauvignon.
Great. Thank you so much for that. I want to make sure that we leave enough time for any Q&A from our audience before we get into a couple other little topics that we have. But I want to definitely toss that out there, that if there are any questions at this point in time, we'd really love to get those up and shared. I do want, that's right, I do want to get to
talk about my recipe.
I do want to get to your recipe, but I want to really quick toss that out there so everybody knows that in the chat you can start asking some questions. So Daniel, yes, go with your recipe. Thank you for that.
Okay, it won't take long, I promise. It's actually my daughter, my brother, and I all share being vegans. So I'm going to share with you my go-to recipe. Especially during harvest, I most of the time don't even have time to go to the bathroom, let alone prepare myself a meal. And I'm very particular with what I prepare. So I'm gonna give you a recipe that takes 3 minutes to make. And it's really easy to make, and it's wonderful. And it is vegan, if you happen to like vegan recipes. So take a cup of quinoa and cook it in your Instapot. It literally takes 2 minutes. And I make it with vegetable broth. So it's all organic, by the way. So then you take a bowl and you throw some cashews and a couple tablespoons of tahini. You put the quinoa on top. You saute some shiitake mushrooms, fresh cut tomatoes, green onions, black olives, and avocado. It takes 3 minutes, and it's a wonderful recipe that will fill you up, provide you with a lot of carbohydrates so you can make it through the day, and it takes literally 3 minutes to prepare. And that's my favorite recipe to go to every day.
Can you pair a wine with it?
Absolutely. That's why I drink the salt wine with it. It pairs great with wine. The tahini, the cashews, the avocados all provide certain richness, which just with Cabernet does extremely well, which is why I like it too.
Awesome. And actually, I wanted to ask the same question about the wontons, though, Jenny, not to just focus on those and only one of your recipes that you supplied, because all three brands did supply 2 recipes. But what are you having with those wontons? The claret?
What am I having with the wontons? Is that what you said? You cut out there for a sec.
Yes. Yeah.
So I made the roasted duck over the arugula salad. So that's what's going with the wontons, and it's with a citrus dressing on top of that. So kind of embodied my childhood and the poultry farm that I was raised on. So that's where I brought the duck into that to pair with the wontons.
Oh, I get it. So it's like a whole
you're talking
combined.
about the sauce, but then I made a really awesome sauce to dip in it that is not healthy at all. So it's the sauce actually is a sweet chili sauce that goes with it. And then I also have I have 2 different options, a pomegranate sauce as well. I would say though, if you're going to make both, the sweet chili one is pretty awesome.
Okay. All right. And so obviously your guy Fabre Brothers, the beef bourguignon that you have, I think that was right. Yeah. Beef cheek. That bread obviously is there to soak up some of that sauce, but talk a little bit about the importance of this recipe on the family table, because it sounded like you had some background on that.
Yeah, I mean, simply, you know, in France, and a little bit here, every Sunday morning, you know, after the church, we were having always a big family meal. And in the winter, that was our favorite recipe, and that's what our mother was doing every Sunday at lunch. And so you go to the farmer's market, you know, on a Saturday, and you picked up all the stuff you need, and my mother was starting to make it on a Saturday, and then you serve it for a Sunday lunch. And obviously the bread, if you don't have bread with a stew, you are missing out completely, seriously. And so it was, you know, our family world was not oriented wine kind of pairings, you know, you have to pair this and this. It always, okay, we have a great meal, pick a bottle of wine that you want to drink, and you will make it up to it. So, you know, we are very simple on our way of living, and that's what matters to us. It's having a moment with the family, sharing some good stories, go back to work if we are during harvest, and enjoy the time. You know, Sunday lunch are very, very important to us. So we try to do it even here with Guillaume as much as we can.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. For all of you, is there kind of a surprising dish or ingredient that would go with the wines that you're showing that isn't a family recipe, that is maybe even a guilty pleasure that you say, you know, I love this wine with Cheetos in the truck? Not really. Not to diminish the wine, but I'm using something that Joe talked about. And actually, I want to go to Catherine on this one because, you know, Catherine, also, you're part of our younger generation that is guiding our wine industry. Interesting pairings that might even exist with, say, Soul of a Lion that you absolutely love.
Oh my gosh, putting me on the spot. I mean, to be honest, I only think of family recipes with something like Soul of a Lion because it's such a familial wine. Like, I think of my grandfather, I think of the times where we weren't vegans, when we would have like a rack of lamb. But I don't know, maybe, gosh, that's really hard. Everything we do, it's like very family oriented. Poppy, can you think of anything?
Well, I'll tell you one thing, if I may jump in, is like,
yeah, of course.
Experience that you get out at Dow when you sit down as a consumer out on the veranda there and looking at this big view, and Soul of a Lion is typically paired with a little something than different than what you said here. And I think it is actually a lamb dish, isn't it? That's done by you guys, and that thing is absolutely by far stunning.
Yes, we have some kafta.
Kafta, yeah, that's very family though.
Yeah, that's a very much of a traditional thing. My mom used to make us kafta, which is a mixture of half lamb, half beef, you know, like barbecued with parsley and all these herbs. And we would have it with Lebanese rice, so we loved that. And of course, when we weren't vegans, we'd have a good gigot d'agneau, good, what do you say gigot d'agneau? It's leg of lamb stuffed with garlic, with rosemary. And we may enjoy these one day again, but for now, I think we're going with the vegan thing.
Yeah, good on you. Right on. Joe, you were drooling when he talked about the kafta and how.
Yeah, hard not to.
But I know you have an interesting pairing to go with the claret, I bet.
Well, you know, it's funny. I mean, we start talking about just, you know, nightly stuff. Actually, Jenny was just mentioning that, you know, when Daniel was saying the Instapot, it kind of sparked our, because we use the Instapot quite a bit.
A lot. Because
so,
we have two very busy children and activities. So the Instapot makes an appearance at least a couple of times.
Yeah, we generally have a full household. So when it's a full household, we make chili verde. And
I always pull out a bottle of claret every time that I use the Instapot and the chili verde. So
and then chili verde and Paso Robles pretty standard, you know, obviously with the flavor of the area. So that would be my guilty pleasure, is chili verde and claret.
Absolutely. I just saw the message. Tell Jill I'll email her a lesson on the Instapot. I'm a professional at it.
It takes an expert. I don't even try to touch the thing.
We're gonna wrap it up here, and so unless either Arnaud or Guillaume have something interesting as a guilty pleasure pairing, I want to wrap it up here with a quick thank you. I don't know, guys, you want to chime in on that one, or are you cool?
No, there's so many things. I don't want to go by that. Let's finish clean.
Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. I want to give everybody that's on here one more chance to say who they are and a website. We have full contact information, of course, already in your booklets, but just in case you guys want to say a little last minute something, I want to give you that opportunity and then we'll wrap it up. So Jenny and Joe.
Just come visit us in Paso. I'd love for you to experience what we have to offer out here. It's pretty unbelievable. We'd love to meet you. I feel like we're all one big family out here, and especially through COVID, it's made us realize that more than ever. I feel like we've gotten closer as a community, all of our winery partners. It's just amazing. Like Daniel said, I saw him out at dinner on a date night with my daughter the other night, and we sat there and talked, and it's just such an enjoyable area that I would love for you to get to experience and to come meet us.
Yeah, that'd be great. Catherine, let's go to you. Nope.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, sorry about that. Thank you for having us. My father and I, we are honored to be here and be with other beautiful families that are in the area and pursuing their passions. And I have to just shameless plug, follow us on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter at Dow Vineyard. And when you connect with us on there, it's me on the other side of the screen. So we'd love to connect with you there, but also invite you to the winery. I'm sure my father will say the same, and come experience what we have on Dow Mountain.
Thank you so much. Arnaud and Guillaume.
Yeah, no, I mean, thank you guys for jumping in. I think the best for you, if you haven't done it yet, is to come here, really feel Paso Robles. It's the only way to experience it, and you will feel how good the community is, how good the wine is, and it's an awesome appellation. So come visit us.
Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Daniel, you have a last word.
You know, when we came to Paso, we used to have a slogan, live the dream, come to Paso. And that's what I had to tell you. You want to live the dream, come and see it for yourself. It's a beautiful region that offers great culinary experiences, great wines, great people. It is all here. And it is still the undiscovered a secret still. So come and be surprised for yourself, see it for yourself.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone that took the time out of harvest to be here with us. I know, Guillaume, it took a little like texting with you, and Joe, I'm glad I ran into you yesterday.
We had a couple technical difficulties here, but we figured
all
it out.
good. I know you're busy. I know it's hard to do this, and so I really appreciate you being on. We've got a great list of attendees, such important people that do such good work getting the word out about wine and wine country. And so I thank you for joining us, actually, and taking the time out of your busy schedules to be able to come and see and hear a little bit about these families in Paso Robles. I know that Two in Communications has a couple other opportunities out there that may or may not still have room for being included. So Marissa is your contact there. I would say contact her, because if you liked this, we've got 3 more to go. Yep. And then we also do a weekly show on Thursdays on Zoom. You can see that on at Paso Robles Wine Facebook page, where we interview winemakers and we talk about different subjects every week. So it's called our Hangout. Thank you again for joining us. Once again, I'm Chris Taranto with the Paso Robles Wine Country Alliance. Marissa is your contact at Two in Communications, and I deeply thank them for putting this together for us. So cheers, everyone.
Thanks,
guys.
Chris.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Chris.
Marissa.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.